In this series, we are joined by Hefin Robinson, a writer who we collaborated with on the project, and discussed the story behind making the series. We hope you enjoy. And I suppose we've touched upon it a little bit now. What do you think are or have been the challenges of making this type of piece where, yeah, there's kind of there were a lot of unknowns when we were creating it. And I guess we have, a rough idea of maybe how people will interact with it. But I guess, yeah, what were the challenges for creating it, and what do we think the challenges will be for an audience?
I think in terms of it, I think the biggest challenge that I wrestled with as a writer was how much story does an audience need? Because, there's always that stuff around this idea that story is inbuilt to us from childhood, and we have that beginning, middle, end thing, and we need that sense of plot and resolution and all of that. And so how much do we have to give, and how much can we trust the listener to make of it what they want?
And I guess to a degree kind of let go a little bit of those structures. And I suppose that's kind of quite a westernized structure, to a degree. We are very much told that's how stories are created. Whereas I suppose thinking about Studio Ghibli, yeah, that kind of is almost quite dreamlike often, and it sort of floats in lots of different, realms where, suddenly something occurs that just doesn't feel like it should be there, but it's there, and it sort of makes sense but doesn't, and it kind of just swirls in a very different way, and it just has a very different pace to it, and just different kind of anchors, I suppose, or sometimes no anchors for an audience. So yeah, it
feels like a lot of their stuff is quite expressive in its again sense of feeling.
Yeah,
like it is often just about the atmosphere and how does it feel, and being comfortable with that, and not thinking, the audience are thinking, wanting plot, give them plot. Whereas you do have to, again, kind of not so much let it wash over you, but there is a sense of switching off that little thing in your brain that says, I don't know what's going on here. I don't know what's going on. It's like I remember talking a lot about the Punch Drunk experience when we were making this, and I think the people who struggle a lot with Punch Drunk are the people who are looking for a definite thread of story,
and they're the ones chasing an actor around, aren't
they?
Generally within that experience, trying to hold on to this narrative, and control their experience in that respect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Find the entire thread of that character's arc, if you like.
Yeah. Which is a way to approach it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But there's also a way to approach it in the sense of, I'm just going to explore this world, and what I come across is what I come across, and I'll process it after the time, and I'll just live in the moment. And now that feels a little bit like the field, doesn't it? Is go with it.
Yeah.
And then process it afterwards, because there is that intellectual bit of your head that says, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, or this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, I think if I was going to coin it, I feel like it's almost dwell time. Like literally just dwelling in the audio. If we did do a second season, I could almost see you just adding the new audio into what we've got. You know what I mean? So it literally goes from, I think every piece is around about 15 minutes, 15 minutes. You're just adding another 12 minutes into that episode. Just, as a first experiment, and just seeing how that... So you're not actually segregating those kind of two things. You're just like adding to them somehow, and just seeing what that feels like. I can imagine first day we do it and go, nope, that's definitely not the thing to do. But it'd be really interesting to change the narrative of what a new season is.
Yeah.
Rather than it just being this definitive thing. Because, we could be playing, as you said earlier, with time, when these audiences, when those stories happen from a different viewpoint, from new characters coming in. It's the kind of Lost version, isn't it, where you suddenly randomly find 30 new characters that are in Over the Hill, that are a random tribe. But you definitely got a lot more people in that area that we've not met that could add more feel and more version and more perspective before we even needed to go outside the field. And equally, we could zoom 4 years in the future, to the two girls at the bench meeting 4 years, and still add that to this thing. So I feel like some of that could be really interesting when you're specifically talking about, really fighting against the traditional, we need to move on because this plot is now losing momentum. Yeah. Well, there is no plot momentum. There's definitely plot, but there's no plot momentum in this because it's totally randomized.
Yeah.
So I think all of that could be really interesting to explore further.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how people engage with that. Because
absolutely.
I like that idea of dwell time. Isn't that nice? But I don't think it's something we're very good at in general as a society. We don't, stop and just spend time thinking with our own thoughts. My dad is amazing at it.
Is he?
Whenever I go home, I'll just walk into the lounge and he'll just be sat in the chair. And he's not doing anything. He's not reading anything. He's not watching TV. He's just sat. And I'm like, what are you doing? What are you thinking about? And he was like, I was just thinking about how I'm going to best way of cutting the hedge up the front. What should I be using this tool? Should I be? And you're like, it's such a brilliant thing. I don't know if it's something we lose with every generation. But yeah, I'm quite envious of that sometimes. The ability to just go off on one in your brain.
Yeah. Which isn't going off on one on social media in terms of just scrolling, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Which
almost an active intent of dwell time as opposed to a disengaged, sat back.
Yeah.
Autopilot.
Yeah.
Dwell time. So.
And actually, that being the default setting to sit and just think rather than to sit and scroll, or to be having multiple things going on, like the TV's on, you're looking at something on your phone, and then I don't know, there's also music playing where you've kind of got this massive overload of just stuff happening around you. But I can't really say that you're necessarily taking any of it in. You're kind of sort of wasting time as well a little bit.
You're wasting your I think we've overstimulated our brains, haven't we? Do you know what I mean? It's that the other thing I always find really sad is the increasing inability to enjoy a view. You come across a really great view, and it's very rare that someone will just stop and go, "That is a hell of a good view." Do you know? Because you're instantly reaching for your phone, to record it.
That's the other thing, isn't it? They will stop, but the phone will come out, and that'll be the record of it. Never to be viewed again. I've seen it now. I've documented it. I've caught it like a Pokemon.
It's almost become our second. We defaulted it to our second brain memory, isn't it? Well, if I don't take a picture of it or record it, it doesn't exist. That's a really strange, profound, the way I think that we are sort of. Our behaviours are being tailored. And
going back to that thing you were saying about feel, how does this moment make me feel?
Yeah.
When I look at that view, if I am going to take a photo of that view, when I look at that photo, does it take me back to how I felt in that moment?
Yeah.
And I think that's what the feel touch is those little snapshots of moments of how are the characters feeling in this specific moment. They've pulled up their car and they're just sitting in the car and they're reflecting and how do they feel at that point? Or there's a panic in the village hall. How are people feeling? I think that's what's lovely about the field, isn't it? Because it does touch into that quite human thing of those moments that stick with you. And maybe we are losing those little moments.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Crafted Reality with me, Ali John, and my partner in crime, Julian Sykes. Remember to like and subscribe and share with anyone you think might be interested. And if you really like the podcast, remember we have a brand new Patreon page. The link is in the show notes. We appreciate all of your support. Thanks for joining us again, and we will catch you next time.